Okay, so Mickey, we've just driven, well, I've just driven here, okay?
Yeah.
So we are now swapping over, okay? So we're swapped over and you're now in the driver's seat,
Yeah.
okay? For the purpose of you doing a lesson, we're going to look at things like lesson planning, okay? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I've just said that we've just swapped over. So that's what would happen on your first driving lesson, is that you would drive to a location where we can swap over.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Obviously, you don't want them driving straight from the front door. It might not be suitable.
No. Also, the fact that they're going to have people watching, like friends, family, etc., etc. So we always start off with you drive to that location. So the lesson plan is going to be looking at the controls. So whilst you've been driving to that location, we're going to look at other things of the control. Like you can discuss things like how we hold the steering wheel in this 10 to 2 position, or up here. Depends on how you want to be holding it, doesn't it? We can also discuss things like the use of the indicators, use of the wipers whilst we're driving to that location, because that location, that first trainee, that nursery area, as what people like to refer it to, you can go through the controls to a certain extent, like I said, the indicators. Indicators down is for left, up is for right. Go through the controls of the dashboard. So we can say that we've got the engine speed, which is your rev counter, then we've got the speedo. We can look at things like your sat nav. We can look at your heating and ventilation controls.
Yeah, I'd mentioned them, but I also say don't worry about those, obviously.
Yeah.
At the time.
We can talk about things like the gear stick as well.
Yeah.
And the handbrake.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so these are the things that we can talk about whilst we are driving to that nursery route. Then when it comes down to it is where we're going to be looking at those 3 pedals. So again, you can ask questions on the route to your nursery route, your first ever driving lesson, of do they know what those 3 pedals are?
Yeah.
Open questions.
Yeah.
What the pedals for, what they're used for.
Yeah.
There is obviously a way that you can remember them. A, B, C, accelerator, brake, clutch.
Yeah.
So looking at the accelerator pedal. Okay, so the accelerator pedal, you can say, has 2 jobs. Speeds you up, slows you down. You may have to further explain that. So you can ask them questions like, do you understand how it can speed up and how it can slow down? You can use a number of ways of how we can do that. You can, if you have a water bottle, you can tip the water bottle upside down and water will just drip out. Or when you want it to go faster, we can squeeze out. So that's explaining the ticking over and the use of the accelerator pedal. Other way that people like to use is if you open up a tap. Turn the tap very slightly, water will just drip out, which is that ticking over. Turn the tap fully is pressing the accelerator pedal and all the water is going to gush out. Turn the tap off and then the water stops, which is how you can explain how that accelerator pedal works. Do you have anything that you use?
For accelerator,
Yeah.
I tend to say you only want to sort of put it down sort of the thickness of like a pound coin
Yeah.
at a time. They don't need to be going straight down on it because it's actually quite a light pedal. So you know, when you are putting pressure on the pedal, you know, you only need to put down like, you know, that much at a time. Otherwise you'll end up just over revving it and things like that.
But what you can also do as well, when the car is started, you can get them to set the accelerator pedal.
Yeah.
Because there's 2 schools of thoughts about whether you set the accelerator pedal before you get your biting point or whether you set the accelerator pedal after you've got your biting point. As with everything, there's always different versions and different people have different opinions. But you can get them to set that accelerator pedal. So if we just start the car
Now?
Yes, if you don't mind. So we can see or we can hear the engine is running.
Yeah.
Okay. So we can see that the speedo is just less than number 1.
Yeah.
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 So to get them used to the sensitivity of that accelerator pedal, you can get them just to press it and keep it at number 1, like what you're doing now.
Yeah. Normally they go.
Yes.
Like that.
Yes. So again, the learning on how sensitive that it is by doing that. And then take it off and then put it back on. Take it off and there you go. And then just turn the car off so we can save you fuel. So that's one way you can get them to use using that accelerator pedal.
Yeah.
If they just push it all the way down when the engine's off, it's perfectly fine, but you can explain never ever do that again, because what will happen is if you push the pedal all the way down to the floor, then the engine's going to start going too fast.
Yeah.
Okay. Next pedal is going to be your brake pedal. Again, your brake pedal has those 2 jobs. Slows you down, stops you. All right. You can mention progressive braking. So progressive braking is gentle, firmer, back to gentle before we get to that stopping. Also explain that you don't use your toes in relation to doing your braking. You're supposed to use the ball of your foot. So the ball of your foot covers that entire pedal, because if you use your toes, you think you're braking, but you're not actually doing a braking because your toes are bending.
It's easier to pivot as well between the pedals as well.
So the idea is to pivot. Some learner drivers will take the foot completely off the accelerator pedal, put it down to the floor, and then dance towards the brake. So what they end up then doing is going from the brake to the floor to the accelerator pedal, from the accelerator pedal to the brake to the floor. When you can just pivot. So you as a driving instructor will be watching for that.
Yeah.
So you're going to be watching to see what they are doing with those feet.
I tend to sort of bring out over sort of transfer of skill. So, you know, I'll probably ask them, you know, do you ride a bike, or have you ridden a bike in the past? You know, if so, when you needed to brake with your, you know, brake levers on the handlebars, you know, when you got to your front door or to your back gate or wherever you was going with your bike, did you squeeze the brakes really hard, or did you just gently come onto them? And they'll say, oh, gently come onto them. And I'll say, what would you do if you squeezed them really hard? Would you go over the handlebars?
Yeah.
Right, well, it's exactly the same with this. You know, you don't want to be headbutting the windscreen. So, you know, so you want to be just, imagine you're squeezing your brake levers on your push bike. It's exactly the same with this. Just gently, progressively increase the pressure on that brake.
Yeah.
And you'll come to a nice gentle stop.
Yes, yes. So the other reason why we cover that and brake pedal with your feet, also with the ball of your foot, is to stop it from slipping off, because sometimes we do have wet weather and water and rubber strangely don't mix. So if you're just covering the corner of that brake pedal, you increase the chances of slipping off. Same as if you use your toes, you increase the chance of slipping off.
Yeah.
Last one is that clutch pedal. Okay?
Yeah.
That is the hardest thing for lots of learner drivers to get used to, because it's about them feeling what the car is doing. Hardest thing for a driving instructor is to explain how the clutch works. So the way that you can describe it is we have a plate that's attached to the engine and we have a plate that's attached to the gearbox. It's not like that, but it's the best way to describe it. So the plate that's attached to the engine when the engine is running is spinning. Because if the clutch is all the way down, those two plates are separated. The biting point is where the engine plate is rubbing against the clutch, the gearbox plate, and like this. So if you rub your hands together, what does it create? It creates a bit of friction. That is your biting point. What you then do is then you bring the clutch all the way up, which then pushes those two plates together, and then they will spin together.
It's like two cogs sort of connecting to each
Yes.
other. Yeah.
Well, the way that I sometimes describe it is if again using the bicycle, you have the pedals, they go around like that. There's a chain that's connected to the pedals and the cogs at the back wheel. If that chain isn't there, you're not going to go anywhere.
Yeah, they don't talk to each other.
Yeah. So the clutch separates that engine and the gearbox, but when you want the clutch up, you touch them together. They are together. Okay?
Yeah.
So what you would do is you then get them to practice with that biting point, because we're not going to be going anywhere just right this minute, because we want to be getting them, making sure that we can do this first thing of getting that biting point.
Yeah.
So what I again get them to do is I get them to start the car. So if you can start the car for me. So the clutch is all the way down to the floor.
That one keeps me here.
We've already discussed about first gear, but then what you can do is you can either put it into first gear, or you can explain to them to put it into first gear. So first gear is find that letter H across to me and up. All right.
Yeah.
So then all you do is you then ask the Your Learner driver to bring the clutch up very slowly until they can hear the engine noise change and they can feel the car wanting to move. Once they can feel it and hear it, you're obviously making that there.
Yeah.
Keep it there. As soon as you hear it and feel it yourself, you have to be then saying, that's it, don't move it anymore. Okay? Clutch back down to the floor. Hear that?
Yeah.
You can hear that engine noise change, and we can feel the car again. So bring the clutch again back to its biting point. And keep it there. And clutch back down again. Feel that?
Yeah.
Put it back into neutral. Take your foot off. And then turn the engine off again.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
So that's the controls part of it.
What I tend to say with the clutch is obviously you try explaining sort of clutch plates and that to, you know, 17, 18-year-old who, you know, who are already obviously a bit nervous about learning to drive. I tend to say, use like the ball in the pool analogy. I'm not sure if you've ever heard this, but you know, I say, right, so with the clutch is whenever you go swimming and you've played with a ball in the pool, you put the ball quite far under the water and you let go of the ball. What does the ball do?
Pops up.
It pops up, flies out of the water.
Yeah.
So how do you stop that ball from flying out of the water? We put your hands on it, and then you slowly raise your hands and the ball will carry on and follow your hands, and then you bring your hands out of the water gently and the ball floats. And I say it's exactly the same with this. Put your clutch down, first gear, and if you let go of that ball, the ball being the clutch, the car's going to stall and jump forwards. But if you want that ball to raise out the water gently, and then your hands, that's your clutch coming up, and then you start moving by getting it to just raise gently.
Yeah. No, I've not heard that one before.
There you go.
There we go.
Playing with your balls in the pool.
Yeah. Every day's a school day.
Every day's a school day.
So that's,
Okay.
that's basically the controls that you're going to go through. Some say that this lesson will take between 30 and 45 minutes to do so, which is an awful long time.
It is. I know a lot of learners want to sort of get in the car and get driving, don't they?
Yes.
I think sometimes they just assume they're just going to get in the car and we're going to go, right, this is what you do, this is what you do, go, sort of thing. Whereas obviously we've got to go through all the, you know, there's a certain protocol in there. And
There is, yes. But then you see some other driving instructors, some driving schools that for their first ever driving lesson, they just sat in the car for the 2 hours going through things.
It all depends, you know, some people might need that.
Yeah.
You know, I think if you've been doing it a while, or, you know, sometimes you can tell whether, quite early on, whether there's a student that's probably just going to need that little bit of extra talking to and explanation. Some you think, yeah, you've got it, you know. You get some that have probably been driving in car parks with their mates or with their parents or something like that. Yeah, in terms of controls, I'd probably, you know, say about 20-30 minutes.
Yeah.
Explaining the controls. I think I normally, if I give someone a 2-hour lesson on their first lesson, I think within the hour they're certainly sort of moving.
Yeah, yes.
And, you know, doing simple sort of moving off and stopping and stuff like that. Which, moving off and stopping, brings us on
to moving off and stopping.
to our next video. All right.
Yes.
Okay, right. We'll see you all on the next one.
All right.